Once upon a time in a small village nestled between rolling hills, there was a boy named Arlo. Arlo was known for his curiosity and endless questions about the world around him. One evening, after the sun had dipped below the horizon, Arlo sat by the fire with his grandmother, an elderly woman full of wisdom. "Grandma, what is fault?" Arlo asked, looking up at her with eager eyes. His grandmother smiled gently, her eyes twinkling as she stroked her silver hair. "That's a deep question, Arlo. A fault is like a crack in the ground, something that shifts the earth beneath us. But the real meaning of a fault is more than just physical." Arlo frowned. "What do you mean?" "I thought a fault was something that causes problems, like when people make mistakes." His grandmother nodded. "Yes, that's part of it. But let me tell you a story." And so she began. Long ago, there was a young man named Elias. He lived in a village much like ours. Elias was a kind and hard-working soul, always helping his neighbors and caring for the land. But one day, he was faced with a difficult decision. A strong storm was coming, and the villagers needed to gather supplies. Elias was tasked with organizing everything. Arlo listened intently, eyes wide. But as the storm approached, Elias made a mistake, his grandmother continued. He failed to properly secure the supplies, and when the storm hit, many of the crops were destroyed, and some houses were damaged. The villagers were angry, and Elias felt ashamed. Arlo's brow furrowed. "So, was it Elias's fault that the storm came?" "No," Grandma said softly. "It wasn't his fault that the storm came. But he made an error in judgment. His fault was in not preparing well enough." However, fault doesn't always mean blame. Arlo leaned in closer. "What do you mean, Grandma?" She took a deep breath and continued. "Elias could have wallowed in guilt and let the mistake destroy him, but instead, he chose to learn from it. He helped the villagers rebuild, worked harder to prepare for future storms, and never let that one mistake define him." "So, is fault something we can fix?" Arlo asked. "Yes," Grandma said with a nod. "Faults are part of life. They don't define us unless we let them. It's how we handle our mistakes, how we choose to grow from them, that matters." Arlo thought for a moment, his young mind processing his grandmother's words. "So, a fault is like a lesson?" "Yes," she replied, her eyes softening with pride. "Faults are lessons, Arlo. They show us where we can improve, where we need to be more careful. But remember, just like a crack in the ground can be repaired, so can the mistakes we make." Arlo smiled. "I think I understand now, Grandma. Fault is not about blaming ourselves or others. It's about learning and becoming better." His grandmother laughed softly, her voice warm like the evening sun. "Exactly, my dear. Now, go to sleep. Tomorrow is a new day to learn more." As Arlo lay in bed that night, he thought about what his grandmother had said. He realized that everyone makes mistakes, but what matters most is how they rise above them. A fault, after all, was not something to be feared, but something to be learned from. And in the end, Arlo understood that faults were part of the journey toward wisdom, growth, and understanding.